to another Mr. Carter Science Special. This lesson will be all about the iris reflex, as you can tell from the little gifs we have behind me here. So what is a reflex? Well, a reflex is an automatic response to a stimulus. Reflexes allow a fast response and they prevent harm to the body. How do they do this? Well, reflexes employ the reflex arc. The stimulus will be sensed by a receptor cell which creates an electrical nerve impulse and passes that impulse along through the neurons, in this case the sensory neuron. The sensory neuron will then pass the electronic nerve impulse along to the relay neurons in the central nervous system, which is made up of the brain or the spine. The electrical nerve impulse is then passed on to the motor neuron, which carries the electrical nerve impulse to the effector muscles, which will then contract and bring about the response. So the iris reflex is an example of a reflex controlled by the reflex arc. The iris adjusts the size of the pupil, and this changes how much light reaches the light sensitive cells in the retina. So let's take a look at the eye. The eye, from the front you have the pupil, which is this black area right in the centre, and that's a hole that allows light through the eye to reach the retina cells at the back of the eye. Surrounding that pupil is the iris, which may be blue or green or grey or very dark brown, depending on your genes. And that iris is actually a set of muscles. Those muscles can clearly be seen here, and those muscles will control whether or not you have a very large pupil or a small pupil. Now that will depend upon the amount of light that we've got. So if there's a large amount of light which might be damaging the retina cells, then your iris muscles will react to make certain that you don't get a lot of light hitting the retina cells. So you will end up with a small pupil. However, we will also have the opposite. If it's a very dark area with not much light, then you need to absorb more light in order to generate the electrical nerve impulses from your retina cells so that you can see. So the iris muscles will react to make certain you have a larger pupil. Now, like all muscles, the iris muscles are antagonistic, and that means that they come in pairs. You have the circular muscles in the iris, which are these, and they are just circles of muscles. And then you have the radial muscles, radial coming from the word radius, and they go in and out almost like the spokes on a bike. Of course, they don't reach through the pupil, they are only on the outside of the pupil, these radial muscles. So what happens with each muscle? Well, if we need to have a large pupil, it's very simple. The radial muscles will contract and they will get shorter, and that makes the pupil get larger. So the iris radial muscles contract, the pupil will get larger. Now, of course, all muscles can only do is contract or relax. So if we have the opposite circumstances, where it's a very bright environment with lots of light, then we get the opposite. And the opposite is that the radial muscles will contract. And because they're circular, when they contract, they get smaller and make a smaller circle. So I can show you that again. When they contract, the circular iris muscles get smaller and make a smaller circle. And by doing that, the pupil will get smaller. So let's see what you've learned. Pause the video now, write down these 3 sentences and try and fill in the missing gaps. Think of the learning we've just done, think of the key words. What can you do? So here are the answers. The iris adjusts the size of the pupil, and this changes how much light reaches the light sensitive cells in the retina. In bright light, the circular muscles in the iris contract and the pupil gets smaller, so less light reaches the light sensitive cells in the retina. In dim light, the radial muscles in the iris contract and the pupil gets bigger, so more light will reach the light sensitive cells in the retina. Make certain that you can memorize these sentences. In an exam, they could be worth up to 2 marks for each sentence. So you could have a 4-mark answer here. I hope you've enjoyed this video and you found it useful and informative. Don't forget to like and subscribe and look out for the next videos from a Mr. Carter Science Specials channel. Thank you very much for watching.